Hello and welcome back to Cozy Books and Knits. My name is Eleanor. If we've not met before, thank you so much for being here. It's so lovely to have you here on the channel. Here on the channel, we talk about all things fibre arts, knitting, reading, hobbies, general pursuit of a cozy life. I live in the countryside with my 2 cats and my dog, just trying to live a crafty girl life. So it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for being here. And if we have met before, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Now, as I was thinking about the fact that we're now into February, we've got about 5 or 6 weeks left of winter, I'm starting to think about what my last projects of the winter are going to be, and just thinking about the rest of the winter in general. So I was having a look on Ravelry at everything I've saved, and I always really like to see what has been coming out recently. Hello, Edward. And it helps me feel really inspired with my knitting, whether that's seeing new patterns I might like to knit or just being inspired by what colours and textures are trending. So I thought actually I would have a look through what's new on Ravelry. I used the new to Ravelry feature, and I think that brings patterns within the last 3 months. So I think these are from December, January and the very beginning of February, and nothing further back than that. So hopefully there's some new things here that you've not seen before that have just come out. There's even some February releases in this list. I've got a number of jumpers, sweaters, but then also some accessories that I'll talk through at the end. And I'm just really excited by some of the trends I'm seeing here. A lot of texture has been trending this year, and I really love that. So there's some more complex, some simpler things, but lots of texture and interest. I never really lean towards very plain basics anyway, and I feel like there's so many great ones out there that's not really what gets me excited. So I've got my laptop here and I'm just gonna go through them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Ninon sweater by Marika Knits. And I really liked this because it looks quite similar to a lot of the other cable sweaters that we've been seeing a lot recently, but I feel like there's some touches in this sweater that make it kind of deceptively simple. There's this big panel of honeycomb cabling in the middle, in the center, but then interspersed in the little columns of very simple twist cables on either side. There's some panels of ribbing, and then actually the sides are made up of these big panels of garter stitch, or is it reverse stockinette? It might even be reverse stockinette. I don't think it says, but it just looks like generally in this pattern there's a lot of texture but also a lot of simplicity as well. It looks like reverse stockinette to me actually. And on the sleeves they're these big slouchy sleeves that are ribbing interspersed with cables, and that just makes it that little bit simpler, but the overall impact of the sweater is that it looks very heavily cabled. So I think if you wanted something that looked really heavily cabled but maybe was a little simpler to memorize, a little simpler to knit, this could be a really good option. But as I say, there's those columns of ribbing, there's no diamonds or anything like that, that sort of diamonds and like antler cables, they all travel. There's nothing like that. It's really quite straightforward, just twists and the honeycomb. The suggested yarn is to either use 2 strands of mohair or Filcolana Peruvian, and Filcolana Peruvian is one of my favourite yarns, and I love when a pattern just recommends 1 strand of wool and gives a gauge and gives instructions for just that 1 strand of wool, and then if you want to add mohair, do your thing. But I love it when it's written to have just 1 strand, because especially with cables I really like the definition of not using mohair. There's 2 samples in this picture, a brown one and a cream one, and one is mohair and one is without mohair. So the fact that it gives a sample without mohair and the stiff definition just looks really beautiful. I really like that. This goes from a 41-inch to a 61-inch bust with quite a lot of sizes in between, extra small to 5XL. But all in, I think that this could be a really good accessible pattern to start cables with if you've got only 1 strand and really quite simple cables throughout. It's just a nice take on the cable trend one. We've seen so many this year. Next one, let's talk about some more cables, but something a bit more complex. This is the Naomi sweater by Maria Sverden, who did the Marielle blouse that was really, really popular. I feel like there's been so many new cable patterns recently that I like to look for the uniqueness, the differences in what people are doing, and I really like this one because we've got that central antler type motif, which I've seen quite a lot recently, and then either side there's variants of lots of different cables that are bigger and smaller variants. But the thing that I really liked, there's kind of two things. I really like the fit of this. I love that it has this double moss stitch. I think it might be what the US call double moss stitch, because in the UK we call moss stitch seed stitch, and then double moss stitch in the US is our moss stitch. So this is, if you're in the US, double moss stitch, if you're in the UK, moss stitch. But it's got all this moss stitch all over it, so it's got so much texture in the areas that are not cabled, which I think, again, there's quite an expanse. Like the sleeves seem to have this one cable motif running down the arm and the rest is moss stitch, so there's not that many, and then the cables stay in this central motif and then the rest is moss stitch, so a lot of this is moss stitch, but the overall impression of it looks very cabled, very textured because of that double moss stitch. Really, really gorgeous. It's knit top down, it's drop shoulder. I also really, really love that it has a split hem. I think split hems always make things drape so nicely and sit so nicely on the body, where you can have a really neat ribbing, but equally it's not going to cinch in tightly over the hips. So I just really like the fit of this, the look of it. Overall, just looks like a really, really pretty pattern. And the recommended yarn is either 1 strand of Knitting for Olive heavy merino or 2 strands of merino held together with soft silk mohair. I really enjoyed working with the Knitting for Olive heavy merino recently, but I haven't held it with mohair before. But it just looks overall like a really nice modern take on a classic. Now this next sweater is the one that has been living absolutely rent-free in my mind for weeks, and I'm really trying not to have any new cast-ons. But if I do, I think this could be it, because the texture in this is the Rima sweater by Irene Lynn. This is stunning. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love this texture. It's all over cables with the interspersed panels of really intricate diamond interwoven cables which flow into like a longer ribbing panel and then back into the interwoven cable section. It's stunning. It's just beautiful. There's so much texture packed into this. It looks so cozy, so drapey. It's a bulky weight jumper. The recommended yarn is the Camerose Snefnug, which is a beautiful yarn. I'm knitting a Sophie Hood in it at the moment. It's gorgeous, and I think even though it's quite intricate, being a bulky weight means that it could knit up quite quickly, I would hope. Now there are only 5 sizes in this, but they do go from 43 inch to 63 inch bust, so there's not that many sizes because it's designed to have a lot of drape and positive ease, so there's a lot of margin within each one of those sizes, but the largest size is a 63 inch bust. And I do have a sweater's quantity of drops air sitting in my yarn stash that currently does not have a project, and that is the same gauge as the Snefnug, so who knows, that could be a possibility. If anyone knows any other alternatives to the Snefnug and the Drops Air, I would be very interested, because I've not used Drops Air yet, but I've heard quite a lot of mixed things about the quality, whereas the Snefnug is quite expensive. So if anyone has an alternative that is maybe between the two price-wise, but still has some good quality, that would be nice, because 12 balls of Snefnug that retails about £10 each is over £100 for this sweater, so I'm not sure I want to do that. So I think this would be more of a Drops Air sort of price range for me, but it looks stunning. It's really, really pretty. I feel like I'm going to be stalking this one on Instagram to see other people who have made this, what yarns they've used, and just let myself be very, very inspired by this one because I just love the texture a lot. Next up, we're doing cables again. However, this one really caught my eye because I thought it looked really quite different to a lot of the cable patterns we've seen lately. And that is the Maisie cardigan by Emily Y. Chen. I love Knits on Instagram as her username. I absolutely love her designs. She has a new one coming out in the 52 Weeks of Sweaters book by Lane Publishing that I love, and I feel like at some point I'm going to have to do some content about that book because there's so many in there that are really, really catching my eye. But A, this is a raglan, which I loved, and B, I thought the cables just looked really delicate. We're in a bit of an era of chunky cables, whereas this felt delicate and gentle to me. It still looks like it's really warm and snuggly. It's quite lightweight. It has a fingering and a lace weight held together. She recommends using a 4-ply held with a silk mohair or even a 4-ply held double. And you can see in the sample pictures, there's this beautiful burgundy one that looks like it has no mohair in it. And then this butter yellow one that looks like it has mohair. So again, that both of those things have been offered, but it just looks really dainty, really delicate. Still has a lot of definition in those cables. It's got this beautiful interlocking diamond motif that has a thick diamond and a thin diamond layered over one another. It has this basket weave down the side with a little cable detail. There's just so much detail in this cardigan with the raglan stitches as well. It's really pretty. I just think it was taking something that's really trendy, which is these big chunky cable knit cardigans, and just doing something a bit different with it, which I love to see. There are 10 sizes in this pattern, going from a 36-inch to a 72-inch bust. We love to see such a wide range of sizes. Then we have the Kaya cardigan by Lynette, and this is just a really, really pretty textured cardigan. Looks like maybe Andalusian stitch, which we know is one of my favourite, with a double knit button band. It looks slouchy and cozy with really long ribbing at the bottom. I love the toggle buttons on the brown sample. And this brown sample is another Peruvian Highland wool by Phil Kalana. They also recommend Santa's Garn Atlas, which I've not used before, but both of these samples are no mohair, and I know you guys always love to hear about patterns that don't recommend a second strand. So if you've seen some of these lovely, gorgeous, slouchy cardigans around, but you want something that is just 100% wool, then this could be a really good option. I just really liked the texture on this one. I thought it was really sweet. And then that thick double knit button band almost has a bit of a jacket quality to it. Just looks like it would be really cozy. And this goes from an extra, extra small to a 5X, which is up to a 64.5-inch bust. Next is the Inga Isle sweater and cardigan pattern by Mippy the Label. This is a lovely, lovely textured sweater and cardigan combo pattern, which again, I love to see a pattern that offers options rather than requiring you buy separate patterns for cardigan and sweater patterns. This is so cozy looking. It's really, really textured. It's giving me similar vibes to things like the Salty Days and the Storm Sweater, the Ingrid, where you work in panels. But I feel like this designer just always one-ups it with the texture. There's always just so much detail in her texture, in her patterns, always such intricacy in the textures that she chooses to use. I think the cardigan option is a really, really pretty cardigan. In fact, I feel like I personally would prefer the cardigan. It's really pretty. It's got lots of different texture. It's got mock cable stitches and lateral braids that just bring the whole thing together. It's really lovely. And this goes from an extra, extra small to a 5XL. Goes up to 72.5 inches. This pattern recommends holding a worsted weight and a mohair together. The two brands that she recommends are Navia and Lana Grossa, neither of which I've worked with before, but they do look really lovely. And one of her samples has a merino cotton cashmere blend that looks really lovely. Oh, it's a lace weight mohair alternative that is cashmere, wool and cotton. That looks really beautiful. So it's just really interesting, really beautiful texture. Really enjoyed that one. Next is the Wild cardigan by Lily Kate France. I've seen this one so much on social media recently, even though it only just came out, but I've seen the whole sort of test process happening, and this is just, it looks so nostalgic to me. I think this collar with all of the dense cables with a lot of different texture in this one. There's so much texture. It's got a real vintage look about it, especially she recommends 2 lengths. There's a cropped version and a long version, but I feel like the cropped version just has a really vintage look to me, which with that collar I really like. She recommends the Wool Dreamers motor. I'm not really sure on the yarn weight of this one because it lists the pattern as an Aran weight, but then the recommended yarn is a DK weight yarn, so I'm not really sure about that one. But I just think that this is a really pretty, intensely textured cardigan, but again, just a little bit different from what we're seeing in that really vintage shape with the collar as well. I think was really cute. This one has 9 sizes up to 68.5 inches in the bust. Next up is the Marron Glacé sweater by Knits Pour Moi. This has a really unique texture in the ribbing. I think it has some twisted stitches in the ribbing pattern that make for this just really interesting texture, and it's got this big thick collar that drapes over the shoulders beautifully and features some sort of twisted stitch pattern that also extends down into these big bold raglan stitches that just make for this subtly textured but really interesting knit. I really like how this is quite a basic pattern, but just through that exaggerated collar, the big raglan stitches and the texture that's incorporated into those elements, I think it has a really nice level of interest and texture that stop it just from being a basic that we've seen before. This does only have 6 sizes, but the largest size does go up to a 60-inch bust, so it's not as impressive on the size inclusivity. This recommends the Wandering Flock Fluff, which is a worsted weight yarn that has 50% cotton, 35% Surrey alpaca and 15% wool. So it's got a really nice looking texture actually that seems quite comparable in texture to something like the Camaro Sneffnug. I really like the sound of that. I just really like the texture in this one, that it looked like it was something a little bit like an elevated basic, like a basic with more detail. This next one is one that's been on my radar for a little while. I keep seeing it on my social media, and this is the Calgary Bay sweater by Coco Amore Knitwear. And this is just this beautiful kind of exaggerated Henley type sweater. It's knit top down in reverse half fisherman's rib stitch. With that fisherman's rib, it's quite a sort of dense, cozy looking fabric, and then it has this quite deep, very chunky Henley button placket that just looks really nice. It just looks really cozy, like you could throw it on with anything and it would just look really nice and cozy. And I love it with the toggles. The toggles are really cute. They recommend the Camaro Sneffnug as well, and we're holding that with a lace weight alpaca silk or Surrey silk. This one has 11 sizes going up to a 66-inch bust. I feel like with the Sneffnug and a silk held together, that would be quite an expensive sweater. But I do really like how dense that fabric, that just looks squishy. It looks like you could squish this and just, I'd really like to cozy up in it. So it might be worth the investment for some people who would want a really cozy, squishy, dense type sweater. Next up is the Grid Loop sweater by Other Loops, and I've seen this texture by Other Loops before. I think there's a little scarf that is like a waffle stitch and then another one of their sweaters. But I really like to see this all over textured jumper. It's quite oversized drop shoulder with a nice bit of detailing at the drop shoulder. Just in a lovely all over knit pearl texture stitch. It's a unisex pattern, which is nice. This one looks quite a simple textured basic. There's quite a lot of different yarn recommendations on here. They suggest holding 1 strand of Jensen by Issachar with 1 strand of Alpaca 1 by Issachar, or holding a sport weight with a lace mohair. So I feel like there's a lot of different combinations you could go for that this would still work. They've got lots of different fabric makeups in their recommended. So if you're interested in this pattern, that would be worth checking out. It comes in 6 sizes from an extra small to an XL, with the largest bust circumference being 59.5 inches. Next up is the Largo Cardi by Ago Knit, which is now specified as being Ago Knit by Caroline Skovgaard Benson, which, if you've been in on the old Knit Talk drama, you'll have seen the name change there. But it's nice that that's been acknowledged and is now being referenced in her patterns. This currently is only in Danish and Norwegian because it is a brand new published pattern, but it does say that English, German and French will be coming soon. But I really liked the overall impression of this cardigan, so I still wanted to include it. If you can't read one of those languages, then maybe bookmark it for later because it's really cute. This suggests using Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool held with Filcolana Tilia. So again, that's a worsted held with silk mohair. But I really, really like the overall impression of this pattern. It has ribbing as the main body of the sweater, but then it has these hugely exaggerated drapey cables down the sides and on the back. It's these cables that have massive stitches that go over a long number of rows that just create this really drapey, kind of loose cabled, exaggerated impression, and just has these hugely exaggerated balloon sleeves, which I loved. I also love the simplicity of a ribbed button band. That's really nice. So there's a lot of details in this sweater that were really standing out to me as something quite different, quite interesting. Again, we're doing a lot of cozy cardigans with cabling. However, interspersing ribbing with these exaggerated drapey cables, I just thought was really interesting. This one has only 5 sizes, but it does go up to a 65-inch bust. So I won't talk too much about that one because, as I say, the English pattern is not quite out yet, but it does look really gorgeous. The next I thought was quite interesting because we talked in one of my last pattern roundups about the Gulfret cardigan by Tricot Meringue. However, this same designer has now released a v-neck sweater version. I just thought that the v-neck of this looked really lovely. The v-neck looks really big and squishy and dense. I like the overall fit of this sweater. It looks really, really cute. Its suggested yarn is the Durarum Natura, which is a worsted weight yarn, 100% merino. So again, only recommends 1 strand, which is nice, and has sizes from extra small to 5XL. And it just looks like quite a plump, squishy type pattern. But the thing that's really interesting is that there is a matching skirt, and we love to see a matching skirt. And this skirt looks really gorgeous. It's like a tube skirt that's got that same texture all over, same stitch pattern, and as a matching set, these look beautiful. It's got this like waffly, dense coziness, but looks really elegant. So I feel like this could be almost sort of like loungewear, work from home, even sort of when you have to go in the office and it's really cold. The sort of outfit when you just want to be really warm and cozy and kind of stay in pajamas all day or stay in a dressing gown all day, but you have to go out and you have to look presentable. This would be perfect. I feel it's such a nice set that just looks really cozy together. I really, really like it. And would you believe there are 19 sizes for this skirt to make sure that you can get a perfect fit? It goes from a 26-inch waist to a 54-inch waist. So the amount of flexibility. The amount of different sizes that are covered in this is brilliant, so that you can get a perfect fit and you're not going to end up with something too baggy because you were between sizes. I think that's brilliant. So nice to have, for the designer to have gone to that effort to make sure that everyone can get a really good fit. I think that's fabulous. I know that knitted skirts are not a new concept. However, I feel like you don't see them done that often, and I don't see them done this well that often. I feel like sometimes they look a little bit lumpy bumpy, whereas I think the fact that this has so many sizes, so you're knitting really quite an exact measurement, makes it just look gorgeous. I love the fit. I think it looks really pretty. Love this. And I think that cropped v-neck, where the v-neck is quite oversized and then the skirt is quite close fitting, just makes for a gorgeous set. I love it so much. Next, let's talk about the Cincher vest by Trust the Mojo. This is a beautiful textured vest. I really like it. It reminds me a lot of the Vilma pullover by Gregorio Fibers, but it's got its own different sort of take on that. It's a different fit. I love the little seed stitch panels and the kind of pointelle lace. Looks really, really pretty. Its suggested yarn is Sandnes Garn Peer Gynt, and I just think this looks really dainty and really delicate. I think it's the sort of thing that you could dress in so many different ways, like with jeans, over the top of a t-shirt, or over the top of a dress if you wanted something really feminine. I think there's lots of different applications for this pattern where it would just look really, really pretty. It goes up to a size 3XL. I really like a vest that isn't just like a sweater vest slipover, but something that is a kind of dedicated, designed, engineered vest garment that just stands on its own really nicely and looks really pretty. I think there's so many different ways to wear this that it would just look really, really gorgeous. And I think this would tie into spring so well, because as it starts to get a bit warmer, you could be wearing it as a layer over the top of long sleeves, just to add a bit of warmth. And then as we transition into spring, it could be worn on its own or with a short sleeve. I think it would be really, really versatile, and I really like it. It's really cute. The next one I have to mention. This is the Lily's Sweater Mini by Nashwa Sakir. This is so pretty. It's so cute. This is a baby sweater. It also comes in a child size sweater, but I still wanted to include this even though we don't talk that much about baby knits, because there is a adult version on the way that looks just as gorgeous. I feel like there's a bit of a theme here with some of these big collars that I've been including in this, but this is just a really, really lovely, cozy looking sweater. The recommended yarns are Drops Nord, which is a sock wool, a fingering weight held with brushed alpaca silk, which is a lovely alternative to mohair that is heavier and thicker and more fluff. Together, they make kind of a worsted weight because there is a lot of halo on the brushed alpaca silk. I think this would just make a warm but really cozy, fluffy fabric. I love this big collar that has all of this rib detail of ribbing sections that are going in different directions and just creating so much detail. I think it looks so pretty. It's such an interesting take on that big, wide, almost shawl-like collar. I think is really, really nice. Really like that. So for a kid, I think this is so cute because I feel like that collar would just keep them really warm and cozy, especially if you knit it in something really soft and fluffy and cozy. But also, it would be really nice to see what the adult sweater is like when it comes. So I won't talk too much about this one because we don't have the adult sweater pattern to look at yet, but it is apparently going into testing soon. So take the recommendation for the baby version, for the child version, but keep it in your back of your mind that if you like this pattern, there will be an adult one coming soon. Looks really cute, so I'll be keeping my eye out on this one. But in the meantime, I am slightly tempted to knit this for my nephew. I really like it. Right, now we're going to touch on a few accessories because again, if you're looking to fit something in before the end of the winter, then accessories could be a good bet. So we're just going to whiz through some of these. The first one is the Clog Socks by Summer Lee Knits. And these are a really, really nice DK weight sock. I haven't knit DK socks yet, but I do really, really want to because they look really warm and cozy. So I think the idea is that you can just sort of slip them on with Birkenstocks and the sock really becomes the leading star of the show, and that they're just a bit quicker. But the thing that really interested me was this heel construction. There's a picture that shows the back of the heel that I'll put on here. There's these 2 lines of cables, and then they split with this triangular sort of gusset, then it cuffed down. So I'm not entirely sure what that heel type is that has this kind of triangular gusset at the back of the heel, but it looks really interesting. So it looks like maybe then it has some sort of short rows that go down the foot. I'm not sure, but this heel construction looked really, really interesting to me. Looked really quite different, and a nice way to extend that texture of those cables all the way down, flowing over the heel and down into the foot. It just looked like there's a lot of flow, a lot of detail, but being DK weight, they won't take as long to knit as a fingering weight cabled sock. So I just thought this looked really nice, really interesting, and just very cute. Next up are the Heatherbone socks. Now these have caught my eye. They are by Tanya Mulokas. This pattern, I cannot get my head around how this stitch pattern works, but it's beautiful. It's like a sort of herringbone. So the stitches just seem to flow. They just seem to flow in such an interesting way. It says it's quite a simple pattern. It doesn't look it, but it says it is. And I just love the texture in these. I think it's so pretty. They look really, really gorgeous, really special. Was really, really tempted by this. It calls for a light fingering weight like Filcolana Arwetta, which I think is a really nice yarn, but it does come up quite light for socks. So it's nice that that's taken into account. But I just think that there's just something about this herringbone texture that is really, really calling to me. Really love these. There also is video tutorials for all the techniques in this video. They are recorded in Ukrainian, so the voiceover is in Ukrainian, but obviously the video shows without spoken instructions, still shows the techniques, and I think that's a really nice touch. Next up, as soon as we're coming up on Valentine's Day, I did want to include this pattern, which is the Twisted Hearts sock by Wildflower Fibre Crafts. And this is such a cute idea. It's this pair of socks that just have these hearts cables running down the sides. They just look really beautiful. They're like little hearts, and then they have like little intertwined cables running down through the middle of the hearts. I just think that looks so cute. It's so sweet. It's actually a free download as well, which is really fun. So if you want a simple Valentine's cast on, then this could be the one, because I just think it's such a fun idea. And this designer is doing a monthly free sock pattern for the whole of 2026, so definitely worth keeping an eye out on. And I just think that these was so fun. They're asymmetrical as well, so you have the hearts going down the outside of each foot, which I just think is really fun. They recommend the Langyans jowl, which I have some in stash. They put a smile on my face. That sort of Celtic heart motif running down that pair of socks. I just think it's really, really sweet. And I love that this designer is doing free sock patterns. That's so much fun. I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye out on the other months that are going to be released. Next one, I've not seen yet, which surprises me because the sweater version of this was everywhere, but this is the Norma Beanie by My Favourite Things Knitwear. So I thought I would bring this to attention because I know a lot of people love the Norma sweater and they love the colourwork on that. Now there's a beanie version, and it features that same colourwork motif that runs on the sweater, but on a beanie hat that looks like a really thick, cozy beanie. It suggests the Isia Soft Fine held together with Isia Spinny. It's got double folded brim. It's a very fluffy yarn combination, and then double folded brim. Looks like it would just be really, really cozy, but I like the colourwork motif. And I thought that some people might just like to know that there's a hat pattern of this out now. Next up is so much fun. This is the Animal Neighbourhood Scarf by Katarina Kuntz. And I saw this and I've been considering one of the double knit colourwork scarves that have been doing the rounds recently that have all the double knit motifs that look really, really cute. I have been considering that, but I didn't kind of see one that made me really, really want to knit it. However, this is an Animal Crossing scarf pattern. There are 413 animal charts, 24 special characters, and 41 fillers. So the idea of this pattern is that it guides you to design your own scarf entirely using all the many, many different chart patterns. This pattern is actually like £12, but for that amount of effort, I think is worth it. And you could knit this so many different times for anyone who loves Animal Crossing. You could knit like all the villagers from your personal island, or just all your favorite villagers, and then all your favorite little motifs from Animal Crossing. I just think it's so much fun. It's so cute, and I feel like my husband would love this as well because he loves Animal Crossing. So this does have me tempted to finally do a fingering weight double knit scarf, which would be a big undertaking, but there's part of me that really wants to do it as well. I just think it's just really cute. It's really, really cute. I didn't know that in my life I needed an Animal Crossing scarf, but I think maybe I do. And then I think the last one I'm going to mention, I could be here for ages. There's so many gorgeous patterns lately, and I've linked a Ravelry bundle in the description of this that does have a few more things in it that time-wise I wasn't able to get into this video. So if you are interested, look for the Ravelry bundle down below, and there'll be a few more things that I ran out of time to include. But this is the last one I'm going to mention, and that's the Alma scarf by the New York Year. And this is just a beautiful little scarf pattern that features this absolutely stunning cable motif interspersed with seed stitch. Suggested yarn is a sport weight. They suggest the Pearl Soho alpaca, season alpaca, which is 100% alpaca sport weight. But I knit the Alma socks last year before even, and the cable motif in this pattern, in the sock pattern, was stunning. So to see this on a scarf where it's going to get a bit more attention because there's a number of different panels of those cables interspersed with the seed stitch that sort of run the length of the scarf, so they'd get a little bit more attention than just being on socks. Because every time I put these socks on and then I have to put these socks in shoes, I think what a shame it is to cover them up, because it's just such a beautiful cable motif. It's so intricate, so delicate. Really, really love it. So I love to see this designer bringing these cables and this motif into some different designs. There's some mitts as well, but this new scarf just really took my eye, and I thought it was really, really cute, really special, really, really sweet. And it's knit point to point with an I-cord edging. Looks really cute, really detailed, absolutely lovely. And obviously, gauge doesn't matter that much with a scarf. It just wants 200-gram skeins, so could be a really nice project for a lovely special yarn that you have in stash maybe. It just really, really caught my eye, and I was really happy to see this cable motif used again. So I think that's all I'm going to do today. As I said, I had trouble narrowing this down. There are so many really creative, beautiful designs that have come out recently. If you've seen any that weren't in this video, then please let me know in the comments or send them to me on Instagram. My Instagram will be in the description as well, because I'd absolutely love to see, and I hope this gives you a burst of inspiration to get you through the last of the winter knitting season. I'm very cold and ready for spring now. So trying to romanticize those cozy knitting afternoons to get through the rain and the dreariness. So it has been absolutely lovely chatting with you today, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.